Have you ever had that feeling like you're trying to really focus on something important?
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're just bombarded with a ton of information, kind of like drowning in it all.
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Well, that's what we're looking at today, that feeling.
Okay.
And how it might actually be, well, a deliberate strategy. You know, there's this legal term called flooding the zone.
I've heard of that.
So it's this idea that you basically overwhelm your opponent in court.
Right. With so much information.
Yeah, exactly. Just throw so much at them that they can't even focus on
Yeah.
what really matters.
I get lost in the weeds.
Exactly. But here's the thing. What if that same tactic, that same idea, what if it isn't just limited to courtrooms? What if it's happening like all around us, like every day?
Wow.
In how we get information and how we see, you know, political actions.
Interesting.
So that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at this really fascinating discussion. It actually started on this YouTube channel called The Ring of Fire.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that.
And they were talking about this potential strategy, this idea of rapidly releasing a ton of information, all these executive orders.
So like a fire hose of stuff.
Exactly. And what effect that might actually have on how the media and all of us process it all, you know? It's a lot to take in sometimes.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like drinking from a fire hose sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
You know, what's so interesting is when you start to think about this idea of flooding the zone outside the courtroom.
Right.
And how it connects with what we experience every day with the news cycle. You know, it makes you wonder about what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Why does it feel so chaotic?
Is it chaotic?
Yeah.
Or is it by design?
Exactly. That's the question.
Well, the folks over at the Ring of Fire, they were certainly thinking along those lines. And they brought up Donald Trump as someone who might be using this flooding the zone kind of strategy.
Okay.
And they pointed to a couple of specific days back in February, February 9th and 10th, as examples.
So what happened then?
Well, if you look at those dates, you start to see, I don't know, like a pattern that really makes you think, like, what gets our attention and why?
Yeah.
So on February 9th, there was this whole thing about the penny.
Oh, I remember that.
You remember? Vaguely.
Yeah. Like, it takes 2 cents to make 1 cent. We've done it for 233 years, but no more.
Yeah. I remember that. Like, is he serious?
It was a very, like, folksy, kind of quirky statement.
Yeah.
But it definitely grabbed people's attention.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was in all the headlines.
Right. The kind of thing that pops up and people talk about it.
Totally. Like, perfect for Twitter.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like snackable news. Snackable news. I like that.
It's easy to digest. It's familiar. The penny, you know, it's almost nostalgic. And it gets people reacting instantly. Like, what was your first reaction?
You know, I honestly don't even remember. Probably just like laughed it off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A chuckle, a quick share, move on.
Exactly. And then, get this, the very next day, banning paper straws in executive buildings.
Oh, right. That was a big one, too.
Again, something that gets people talking.
Yeah. Huge debate.
Right. Whether you're all about saving the turtles.
Yeah.
Or you're like, come on, this is so inconvenient.
Right.
And, you know, in the Ring of Fire discussion, they were even comparing this to other things he'd said before.
Like what?
Like Canada becoming the 51st state.
Oh, yeah. That was wild.
Or buying Greenland.
That too.
Right. All these statements. That
Yeah.
they make headlines. They get people like buzzing.
They're designed to provoke a reaction.
Right.
And they do.
They do it very well.
They totally do. It's like they're tailor-made for how we consume news now. You know, with online news and social media.
Yeah.
Everything's so fast.
It's all about the quick take.
Right. A soundbite, a headline, a quick share.
And these are the kinds of things that just fit that perfectly.
They do. But here's the thing. This is where it gets really interesting. And this is what the flooding the zone idea is all about.
Okay.
While all this attention was on the pennies and the straws,
Right.
these really like easy to understand buzzworthy things.
Yeah.
At the same time, other stuff was happening.
Okay.
Like legitimate executive orders.
With real consequences.
Real consequences.
Right.
Like policy changes and stuff. Things that have a lasting impact.
So it's like a distraction.
It makes you wonder, right? Like what happens when we're all focused on the surface stuff?
Yeah.
What are we missing?
That's a good question. So what kind of things are we talking about here? What kind of executive orders?
Well, they brought up a couple of specific examples.
Okay.
One of them was halting enforcement of certain anti-bribery laws. Now, that might not sound as exciting as, a penny disappearing or whatever.
The end of paper straws.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you actually think about what that means, it's pretty big. Like, it can make it easier for corporations to basically bribe people in other countries and not worry about facing consequences.
Really?
Yeah. They were saying that, like, there used to be a time when the U.S. could prosecute that kind of thing.
Okay.
And this executive order basically changes that. So it's a big shift. And they were pointing out that this could have a lot of negative consequences, especially for developing nations. It could make corruption even worse.
Yeah.
And it's overshadowed by all the other noise.
Right.
The stuff that's easier to understand.
Yeah. And maybe even a little entertaining.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the other example?
Okay, the other one was granting great authority to Doge Elon Musk's entity.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that one.
That one got a lot of attention, right?
It definitely grabbed the headlines.
It was everywhere.
Elon Musk, anything with cryptocurrency.
Right. It's like catnip for the media.
Yeah. It gets the clicks,
Totally. It's interesting to think about why these stories become so dominant. Like, is it just that they're more entertaining?
Maybe.
Or is there something else going on? I don't know, it's a good question.
But the point is, the thing to remember here is that while everyone was talking about Elon Musk and Doge, an executive order about COVID-19 vaccine mandates basically just slipped under the radar, like nobody even noticed.
That's crazy because that's a huge issue.
Right. It was huge.
With huge implication.
For everyone.
Yeah. Public health, individual rights.
Everything.
Yeah.
But it got, no attention.
Because everyone was distracted.
It's
exactly what flooding the zone is all about.
Right.
You create so much noise that the important stuff just gets lost.
Wow.
It's effective.
It's effective. Why do you think it works so well?
Well, the Ring of Fire folks had some ideas about that.
Okay.
They were saying that media outlets today, especially with the 24/7 news cycle and everything, they need to make money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they tend to go for the stories that are more
sensational.
Yeah, sensational. Or easier to understand.
Easier to explain.
Right. The pennies, the straws, the Elon Musk stuff.
Yeah.
It's easier to turn that into a quick headline than it is to really dig into something complex.
Policy changes.
Yeah, like those anti-bribery laws or vaccine mandates.
Right, they take a lot of time.
Yeah, time and resources.
To really investigate and explain properly.
Exactly. Yeah. And media outlets are often stretched thin these days.
Makes sense.
So it's easier to just go for the low-hanging fruit,
Yeah, it's the path of least resistance.
Exactly. And it has real consequences for the information we get.
And they were talking about how there are fewer investigative journalists now.
Oh, yeah. That's a big problem.
And how you see the same headlines?
Yeah.
Across all these different news outlets.
Like everyone's just repeating the same stuff.
Right. It's like, where's the original reporting?
It's hard to find.
They even mention the Wall Street Journal had this Trump tracker.
Oh, wow.
Where they were basically just listing everything he did.
Just to keep up.
Because there was just so much. It was overwhelming.
It was a fire hose.
Right. Even for them.
Exactly.
And this whole idea of using distractions.
Right.
To kind of hide other actions.
Yeah.
It's not new, right?
No, it's not a new tactic.
They were talking about, the whole controversy over the size of the inauguration crowd.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Remember that?
It was a big deal at the time.
And while everyone was arguing about that, what else was happening?
Right, exactly.
Really?
What were we not paying attention to?
It's something to think about. And you know what? What I found really interesting is that the Ring of Fire folks, they made it clear that whether you agree with the person using this strategy or not, it can be effective.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge that.
And they were saying, it's like
even if you disagree with someone, you have to understand how they operate.
Know your enemy.
Right. It's about being informed.
It's about seeing the strategy regardless of the person using it.
Exactly.
So to sum it all up, this whole idea of flooding the zone, overwhelming us with information, it's about creating this distraction so that we don't notice the things.
The important things.
That might actually have a bigger impact.
Right. It's about controlling the narrative.
And it's happening all around us.
Yeah, it's something to be aware of.
So here's the question for you, for everyone listening. We are bombarded with information every single day.
Yeah, it's nonstop.
So how do we make sure that the important stuff, the stuff that matters,
stuff that's not flashy,
doesn't get lost in the noise?
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it?
It is.
How do we stay informed in this crazy world?
How do we cut through the clutter?
It's tough.
Yeah.
But we have to try.
We do. It's about being aware and thinking critically and really looking for that information that might not be as shiny and exciting.
But it's actually really important.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good food for thought.
Food for thought. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.